Hello student leaders and welcome to Roommate Mediation. The learning outcomes for this module will be as follows. Number 1, student leaders will learn what it means to be an impartial third-party mediator. Number 2, student leaders will learn how to create/set ground rules for the roommate mediation process. Number 3, student leaders will learn when to intervene in the mediation process to keep it productive. Number 4, student leaders will learn when to refer mediation to their supervisors for additional support. Impartial third-party mediator. So what is an impartial third-party mediator? It is a person who is not personally involved in a conflict in which they are trying to mediate and is someone who will treat conflicting parties fairly without aligning themselves to any one of them. Why is being impartial important in mediation? When residents are in conflict, there is typically a loss of trust in each other, and the role of the impartial third-party mediator is to support the residents in rebuilding that trust for each other. With that being said, the residents involved must feel that they can trust you to be fair to them in the process. Once you lose their trust, it is really hard to regain it and can potentially lead to an unsuccessful mediation. As an impartial third-party mediator, one must resist the urge to pick a side, even when someone is clearly in the right or in the wrong. The fastest way to lose someone's trust in this process is to pick a side and to say that someone is right or wrong. Please avoid it at all costs unless someone is clearly breaking policy. If that is the case, then it must be addressed as a policy violation and not as someone being right or wrong. We are here to support the residents to come up with their own solutions, and in doing so, we must avoid giving them the solutions to their problems unless there is a stalemate where your intervention may be needed. Setting ground rules for mediation. What are ground rules? They are agreed upon rules between conflicting parties which are facilitated and regulated by the mediator. Involved parties can also add their own rules. However, both parties must agree to abide by them or else they cannot be added to the ground rules. Same goes for the rules created by the mediator. Involved parties must agree to them before moving forward. Sometimes they need to be modified before proceeding. So why are they important? They are important because it helps conflicting parties stay on track and set the expectations for this agreement with civility. Recommended step-by-step ground rule setting. Before you begin your mediation, it is important to explain your role as an impartial third-party mediator and that you will not be picking sides under any circumstances. Let the residents know that they are expected to participate in good faith and that they uphold the commitments they agree to in this mediation. Let them know that their mediation is private between you and them, that you will be taking notes to stay on track, and that once you are done with the mediation, all of your notes will be destroyed. Let them know that they are the ones creating their own living conditions, but that you will intervene when a stalemate occurs, when conversations are no longer productive or suggestions may be needed. As a student leader, you can make recommendations and be creative with ideas, but ultimately, your residents will have to agree to them. Please refrain from creating the living conditions for them unless they are unable to create them on their own. Let residents know that they may not get every single thing they expect from their roommate, but that they should try to work with each other where they can and respect each other's boundaries. Let residents know that the most effective mediations have been where residents have compromised and were willing to meet in the middle with their roommates. Give them a few minutes to come up with as many topics as they want to address about their living conditions/behaviors that bother them as they can. Try to have them all on the table and address every single one of them one by one, even the smallest thing that is bothering them. Sometimes sending them an email before a mediation begins so they can write down exactly what they want to talk about can be extremely helpful and time-saving. Again, it is important that even the smallest thing be included, as a tiny rock in a shoe over time can cause a blister. Encourage residents to use I statements. For example, I get really upset when I want to talk to you about the roommate agreement and I get ignored. It really bothers me when we agree on taking turns on taking out the trash on specific dates, but I have been the only one taking out the trash these last 3 weeks. One person speaking at once. If an interruption occurs by either party, the mediator will ask the person speaking be given the opportunity to finish their thought. Aim for the behavior and not the person. Preferred approach. When you bring people to the house without first consulting with me, it makes me feel like my opinion doesn't matter. Unpreferred approach. You are a very inconsiderate person and have no awareness of others. Finally, ask your residents if they have any clarifying questions before they begin. If they don't, please proceed. When is it okay to intervene? When one party speaks over the other and it's not their turn, gently tell the resident who is interrupting their roommate to let the other person finish their thought and remind them that they agreed on only one person speaking at a time. When one person is speaking a lot longer than the other person, we want to have it as balanced in speaking time as possible. Sometimes setting a 2-minute max limit works, but it can also be 5 minutes or 1 minute. It really depends on what the resident wants. Untimed also works. We just need to make sure that we are estimating equal speaking time. When we need to paraphrase what one party just said in an effort to take the sting away from it and reduce the level of defensiveness from the other party. Sometimes residents may not have all the communication skills necessary to effectively communicate with their roommates, and they may say very pointed things which can cause the other party to get defensive. Our goal is to reduce the need to attack and defend each other. In other words, our goal as impartial third-party mediators is to rebuild trust among them and to remind them of their mutual benefits in resolving their issues. When someone is using derogatory language towards another, and to remind them about disagreeing with civility and focusing on behaviors and not the person. When residents have reached a stalemate on how to resolve their issues, but you have some ideas on how they can potentially solve them. Please note that your ideas are merely suggestions and both residents need to agree whether they adopt them or not. Sometimes they may choose to modify your suggestions, and that's okay, so long as we continue productive conversations. When should you ask your supervisor for help? When you are unsure about how to proceed in an issue. When one or both parties did not participate in good faith. When the problem was so out of hand that residents were either getting physical or thinking about getting physical with each other. In the extremely rare event that residents get physical with each other, please call CPSO and ProStaff on call for support. When residents are consistently reaching a stalemate and unwilling to compromise. When one resident demands that the other person should be the one changing behaviors but is unwilling to modify their own. If you don't know what else to do in the mediation process, please know that your supervisor will always be there to support you and will take on the mediation if this situation calls for it. Note, failing at a mediation isn't always the student leader's fault. In many cases, it is due to one or both of the parties who are unwilling to compromise. Please don't be hard on yourself if a mediation is unsuccessful. Some mediations will work and others won't. Sometimes residents are not interested in mediating and or have reached a boiling point that mediation can no longer solve. Debriefing questions. What are some challenges that come to mind when you are mediating? Why is trust so important in the mediation process? What questions do you still have about the roommate mediation process and about being an impartial third-party mediator? Please reach out to your supervisor if you still have any more questions on what it means to be a third-party impartial mediator. Thank you for watching and have a great day. Happy mediating!